Howard Hanson had a profound influence on American music, yet you may or may not have ever learned much about him. Some know him more as a composer, others know that he was director of the Eastman School of Music and early advocate for the first DMA programs. My grandparents probably heard him on the radio, but today many students and music enthusiasts have yet to make his acquaintance. Howard Harold Hanson was born on 28 October 1896 and raised in a small town just outside of Omaha, Nebraska, named Wahoo. Today the name sounds like a failed search engine. Wahoo! Anyway, his parents, Hans and Hilma, immigrated to America from Sweden. They spoke only English at home, but they attended a Reformed Lutheran church where the services were held entirely in Swedish. Howard was raised in this tight-knit, bilingual community of Swedes that embraced their new citizenship as Americans. No doubt Howard's deep sense of patriotism was born out of his immigrant family's hard work and desire to thrive in the United States. Howard's mother could play the piano, and though his father, Hans, was not as musically inclined, both parents encouraged their only child's music instruction. Howard played basketball, sang in the choirs at church and school, studied piano, but he excelled in cello. He actually graduated from local community college before ever graduating high school. In 1911, he was a 14-year-old graduate of Luther College in Wahoo, where he studied music and participated in many performances. In 1913, at age 16, Howard graduated Wahoo High School as class valedictorian. He immediately went to the Institute of Musical Art in New York City, now known as Juilliard, where in 2 years, 1915, he graduated in piano and theory, all while completing the second-year postgraduate course in composition. Howard then went to Northwestern University, where he earned his bachelor's degree in just 2 years. It is now 1916, the same year of Howard's latest graduation, and he was appointed head of the Theory and Composition Department at the College of the Pacific. He was only 19 years old. 3 years there, he was elected Dean of the Conservatory of Fine Arts. Can you say overachiever? Obviously, things were run quite differently in earlier days of American music education. Howard Hanson composed over 100 musical works, with 2 early works, California Forest of 1920, which was actually performed in a California forest, and a programmatic piece, Before the Dawn. He won the Prix de Rome. As an aside, the first American Prix de Rome competition was held in 1921. Now it is called the American Rome Prize. Ironically, this organization is independent from the Prix de Rome that awarded prizes in Paris from 1803 through 1968. These earlier works of Hanson's demonstrate the strong influences Nordic composers, specifically Grieg and Sibelius, had on him. On his birthday in 1922, Howard Hanson received a cablegram announcing his received scholarship to the American Academy of Music in Rome, Italy. It was in Italy that Hanson composed Symphony No. 1 in E minor, Opus 21. He named it the Nordic Symphony because he based the work on a Swedish folk song. Hanson spent 3 years in Europe and included a visit to his parents' birthplace in Sweden. In a letter to his parents, of which he wrote weekly while in Europe, Hanson said he wanted to check up on the country to see how much the country influenced his music. And he exclaimed, "And now I believe I understand myself." In composing North and West, a symphonic poem, or symbolic poem as he called it, Hanson reconciled his northern Swedish roots with his western Nebraskan, indeed American, upbringing. About the work North and West, composer Virgil Thompson said he was frightened by the work, and Hanson was, quote, writing psychology, unquote. After spending 3 years in Europe, refining his craft and understanding his Scandinavian American voice, Hanson returned to the States. In 1924, he started for his new friend George Eastman as head of his new Eastman School of Music at the University of Rochester. Hanson spent 40 years instructing generations of students. He met his wife Margaret at Eastman and was married when he was well into his 40s. A big part of his work at Eastman was promoting American composers and was considered by many the dean of American composers. He held radio programs before TV and internet, and in his retirement created the Institute for American Music. He also helped to train future musicians at the Interlochen camps in Michigan. Hanson's second symphony, titled Romantic, was commissioned by the Boston Symphony Orchestra on its 50th anniversary. Hanson gave the title Romantic at a time when many, if not most, of the young composers had taken up with the Frankfurt models of modernist thinking and atonality, so this title could have been considered by some a slap in the face. A Hanson contemporary had to say this of his music: "There is an ever-present conflict in Hanson's music between the sacred and the secular," and that he, quote, "is a master of the large modern orchestra and of the combination of orchestra and chorus. If anything, he overexploits the rich possibilities of the orchestra," unquote. As you will hear in Hanson's works, he doesn't shy away from dissonance and modern ideas in his work, but he does embrace the beauty that is found in his value of the 12 tones we utilize in Western music. After Hanson's third symphony, his later works did become a bit more modern, albeit romantic. Burnett Tuthill describes Hanson as a, quote, "romanticist who lives in the 20th century," unquote. Howard Hanson was 42 years old when his father, Hans, a hardware store owner, passed away. Hanson's fourth symphony was dedicated "In memory of my beloved father." When I listen to the symphony, I'm inclined to think of the bassoon voice as that of his father, and the cello voice maybe as his own. Hanson learned a great deal from his parents that he passed on to those he taught. To Hanson's Eastman students, he had this to say: "I cannot close my talk to you without saying that it is my earnest prayer that your study at the Eastman School will develop not only your musical talents, but that indescribable thing that we call your character. If at the end of your student life here you come out able musicians, but small men and women, I shall not be happy. For life is all-encompassing, and music is but part of life. If you develop of meanness, pettiness, jealousy, envy, conceit, selfishness, I shall consider your education a failure regardless of your musical accomplishments. If, on the other hand, you develop a philosophy of living which includes the divine qualities of love, sympathy, self-sacrifice, humility, and unselfishness, I shall consider that you have wrought well, and that the Lord has crowned our labors with success." Symphony No. 4, Opus 34, or Requiem Symphony, is the one work Hanson esteemed his finest.